Have you ever asked yourself how mixing multiple drummers in a mix would turn out? Can it even be done? In this clip, Devin guides you through his process of taking 3 different drummers and their 3 unique performances to create one cohesive drum mix. Enjoy.
Drums. So what I would do is I would make the all drums auxiliary. Where is that? Do I have one? No. So I'm going to make one. Because there's so many drum tracks here, I want to be able to solo them and whatever. So the auxiliaries, it's like this slow process, right? But I'll call this one all drums. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Yeah. Someone told me the other day that this sparkling water, like La Croix or whatever, they say it tastes like you're drinking sparkling water and someone's yelling the name of a fruit from another room.
That's about right.
Yeah, right? Yeah, it's exactly how it feels. It's like, oh, it must be lemon. All right, so all drums will make a... So all the 3 drummers are all going to go to their own auxiliary, but then that auxiliary is all going to go to a global auxiliary. So Sam 4546. Okay, so this is Morgan. So that's a bus. So if I wanted to add some, okay, so how I did that is I did a parallel thing with that. So I'll keep that with him, and we will make all of Morgan's stuff also go to the same 4950. Okay, so 4950. And so all this stuff is like the Anoop stuff. So is this a stereo one? It is not. So let's get rid of that again. And we will make a stereo aux for Anoop. Like I said, all this gets refined as the mix goes on, right? Anoop aux. Okay, and that thing that I did in the beginning thinking I was being funny is going to drive me crazy, so I'm going to change mer kicks to more kicks. All right, and so now Anoop, his input will be 5152, and we'll solo safe it. And then all of Anoop's stuff goes to 5152. 5152, and then his auxiliary will also now go to 4950. All right, so now we should be able to solo this and hear it. Let's hear it. We do. All right. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to listen through to just sort of where things are. Just had to check that my SonarWorks was on. All right. So I don't typically mix in headphones, so this would be... So the first thing that I hear there is, again, a lot of the stuff that I do is just about taming the frequencies. And I always just sort of take that, yeah, all that sort of from 70 some odd down, maybe a little less. Just so that ultra low stuff can kind of not get in the way of everything else. It's all on the, it's like a sub thing on the kick drum here. Yeah, it's just a touch. Okay. So then what else do we have here? So let's solo all of Anoop. And we'll start with this. Oh yeah, that guy. I think I brought those in, but they're not necessary. Okay. But you notice that I only muted them as opposed to erase them. It's because they're samples. So if I need a raw sample,
boom, there you go.
Yeah. So this guy here, where are we here? Okay, so now because I know the song's coming, the next part here is Morgan. So at that point, I'll add Morgan to the mix. So the idea for this section is he gets very small. So I had it set up so he's got his own bus. So I'm just going to experiment with a couple of things. I'm going to throw something onto this bus that isn't, it's a placekeeper, just so that as I move down the list, because everything for me is really methodical. I go from the top to bottom, go from the top to bottom, go from the top to bottom. And it refines itself over time, as opposed to at this stage spending a whole lot of time trying to get the exact sound. So I know I want this to be a filter. So I know that there's a thing on this Shep's EQ. Come on, baby. There we go. That I know kind of acts as it's a radio sound. So there we go. So now I've got this auxiliary here going to the bus. So let's hear if that. All right. So I know that that's what that needs to do, so I can move on. And now what I'm typically doing is roughing in the volume between the two. So what I'm going to want to do as well is I'm going to make one more auxiliary here for Morgan. That's all Morgan. So I can have relative levels move all Morg. And we'll make that one. I can't stress enough how important just having it all clear at this stage is to me. It's just, it becomes so easy for this to get overwhelming. And when you're choosing to do things that are complicated like this, it may seem like it moves slower by doing it like this, but it's the opposite.
Yeah, because if you don't do it like this, you might move faster in the short term, but eventually you're going to hit this wall where you basically mixed yourself into a corner you can't get out of.
And then if you're trying to find where a clip or sound is, or like some sort of thing, you've got 100 tracks of shit, and maybe I'm sure I gotta adjust my balls here. That's what it's a lot of times I find that those little glitches end up being things that you can't really see. Sometimes maybe you had cut a kick drum and there's a sliver of it left and it's making a little popping sound. So again, by having this, it at least makes it a little easier. So now I've got all Morgan on this. So if I was going to do the relative levels between that, a new part and Morgan, I can just do it here. And I like doing things like this too. You see how I'm just I've just moved the pan on the bus slightly to the right. When I have a lot of tracks, like I clearly do, and if I'm not mixing in surround, which is unfortunate because mixing surround is the fucking best, I've got to try and find ways to carve out space with all this stuff. And sometimes it's these strange things that happen with phase. So I've got a bus and I've got Morgan here. And so they're in parallel with each other. So check it out. So here's Morgan. Here's the bus with it, right? Fair enough. But what I think is interesting is if you do just a slight pan on the bus, it just shifts the phase enough that it gives you a weird sense of space. Check it out. So just like that. You know what I mean? So without it, it's like this. And then with it, it just kind of shifts the image slightly without having to pan the whole thing. It's just phase is such a incredible tool for finding space. And then, okay, so now we've got a thing that's going dun taka taka that I would like to merge into a Noop's next part. Now I don't know if I'm going to be capable of doing it here. Let me try something. So here,
so they're playing very similar parts.
Yeah, so it's the same tempo, and I found that with Morgan, that whole thing, I've got on that I should even open it for you some other time. On that drive of empath stuff from Mono Valley, the Morgan sessions are just 15 minutes of him jamming.
Mm-hmm.
And so this little piece here is a little thing that I captured amidst him jamming just to a tempo, right?
Got it.
that's not like Morgan playing the song. It's just I given him 128 beats per minute, and he's just jamming. And so I found something that fit and then moved it in, right? So now the next thing I'm going to try and do. Okay, so what I did there, you'll hear on the print that I did of Morgan, I did a crescendo into the next part where it's a small sound that then morphs into like a bigger sound. And that's one of the tricks that I would use to try and smooth out transitions in a dynamic song like this. So just listen to it on its own. You hear how the frequency range goes to da-da-da-da, and it opens up. So what compromises that effect is when I add the bus, it goes away. So what I'll do in order to make that transition to the next Anoop section tasty, I will fade out the bus at the same time that fade in is happening. And then I will, see, I've already got a bit of a boost on it, but let's see what happens. Okay, so now because we're losing some volume based on the bus going away, I can actually do a push on the global Morgan bus. And now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make it sound like it goes from small back to Anoop, but fading into itself. So let's hear what happens. Okay, so now we can give it more. You see what I'm trying to do there, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to just goose that just a touch more. Okay, less. Okay. So I'm still getting a bit too much of the super low stuff here, just a touch. All right. And I'm going to do the same thing with this guy. So, okay, so that guy there. Okay, I've got that in as an accent. First thing that I hear with that is there is an upper mid push there that is going to get in the way of basically everything else. So, see, that's the problem with all these stupid fucking plugins. There's just too many of them, right? So, it's right there.
You know, on that topic, I really do think that people should just pick a few tools that they are really good at.
100%.
Use those.
100%. Man, I use this plugin so much.
It's a great one.
Yep. Because it's... Yeah, it's just that clack, just down just a touch. Soften it off a bit, maybe just a bit, even further. Just see how it softens it. It's just, that's all it's doing. So here's with it, here's without it. It's like a bronze colored frequency. So then...
Do you have synesthesia?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So... Okay, so all that kick is doing is accenting it. Boom, 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 boom. And the reason I added it is because the beat that Anoop is doing, there's so many kicks going in there that I want that push. And I was trying not to draw it out of the kick drum. If he's going, attack it, attack it, attack it. I couldn't get that push, right? So what I did was I added a different kick, and if it's a different kick, I'm not going to run into phase. And because this stuff was so meticulous in terms of its structure, I kept the gridding on the parts pretty tight. You know what I mean? It's like pretty on the grid. So I can just drop one of these kick samples in on that beat for any accent. And because it's a different kick sample, I don't run into phase, right? So it's like, so there's this. Now with it, I get this. And then what I did with the half EQ drums, so check this out. So how I do that effect, and I do it all the time. Check it out. If there's anything that you can learn from me, this is it. Let's take this section here, for example. What we're trying to do, and what I often do to go from section to section, is I fade one thing into another. So it just sounds like it's morphing into itself. And how I do that is I select this whole section, and I'll take maybe this much of that section. So this little bit here is not affected. And I'll just go up to Audio Suite, and let's say anything. Let's take the Ovox thing, which is a great new plugin that I use a lot from Waves. And then I audition it here and say, okay, so how would this sound for drums? Like, sure, you know what I mean? And then I process it, and you see now how you see how this section here is processed and this isn't? So together it sounds like this, right? But the way I make that morph thing is I start in the beginning and I do a super long crossfade, and I just hit F, and then it does this. And I do that all the time. And so that effect that you heard a second ago here on the existing drums is an example of that. Right? Now, again, I have to move this.
That's such a painless way to do that.
Oh, dude, it works so good, man. It works so good. And it's fun, too, because a lot of times when I go to Audio Suite, I don't even think about what I want. I just grab something. You know what I mean? Like anything. I'll just be like, I wonder where this works. And, you know, just to outline that as well. Let's do it one more time for fun. We could just say, okay, so this section here, but you have to have it in grid mode, I find. But you can go, it doesn't matter. Let's just go to modulation, and we'll go Enigma, bam, I have no idea, render, right? And then I could just do the crossfade, and then I've got this crazy effect. Right?
Yep.
All right, so